So this was it, the last camping trip of the year. The days were getting shorter and the nights were getting longer and definitely colder. It was late September and it was my last shot of taking a photograph of the Milky Way. So I went out with a friend and we hiked on a national park close to Stockholm called Tyresta. And we hiked deep inside the forest near a lake called Stensjön. The camping spot is on the north side of the lake, which gives me a full view towards the south and the Milky Way with the lake just below it. But this trip was more about the camping rather than the photography. I wanted to try out my gear on temperatures reaching closer to 0 degrees Celsius. I knew it was gonna get cold this night, I just didn't realize how cold it was going to get. So the hike to the camping spot wasn't really that hard. Although it's deep inside the national park, the roads are pretty accessible and we didn't have any problems reaching the camping site. We picked up plenty of wood for the fire, which is already prepared on the site, and we started planning where to set up the tents. So here's where we hit our first speed bump on the road. Someone had totally ignored the rules of being in a national park and had started to carve out large pieces of wood from a tree and created a hazardous area around the entire camping spot. The tree could fall on any day with strong enough winds to make it fall. Now, I really didn't feel that comfortable taking the risk of having a big tree falling on me when I was sleeping inside the tent. So I picked a spot really close to the lake, but at least I was protected from the risk of getting a tree falling on my head. My friend, however, took a calculated risk of camping closer to the tree further away from the lake. He put his tent around some trees, figured that that would protect him if the tree was going to fall during the night. So we set up the tents, we started a fire, we talked, we laughed, we hung out, we drank beers, and I skipped the unsensational sunset in favor of the warmth of the fire, some good food and beers, and great company. Eventually, the sun was way below the horizon and the darkness and the cold was upon us. With only the fire and the headlights, I started finding my way down towards the lake. It was time to photograph the Milky Way. Unfortunately, the Milky Way wasn't really in position. It was further away than I had anticipated, and the light pollution from Stockholm hindered me from making a good photograph. Also, it was too late in the season. The Milky Way has gone too far under the horizon to create a photograph interesting enough. Instead, I pointed the camera straight up towards the constellation of Cygnus, where I know the Milky Way is passing, and I took some of these photographs. I figured that would be enough for this night, so I went to bed. That night was horrible. I woke up around 1:30, maybe after an hour of sleep, and it was freezing. The temperature had dropped to roughly 3 degrees Celsius, and I couldn't breathe. I knew that I had camped too close to the lake. I knew that cold, humid air from the lake was coming straight into my tent, creating a freezing environment inside the tent. And for the first time in my life, I felt claustrophobic. It was a really weird feeling for me, because I've never had that experience before. I usually tend to like small spaces, it feels cozy for me, but this time it was different. I had difficulties getting air inside my lungs, and I started to feel my body rev up. It was really hard to breathe. I had to get out. I needed air, I needed warmth, I needed space. My body started to heat up after me walking around in the darkness of the forest after a while, with only the owls as company. Oxygen was filling my lungs again, and my body started to slow down. The pulse went down, and I started feeling tired again. I wanted to go to sleep. I remember I read a tip on a Facebook camping group here in Sweden, saying that if you're cold inside the tent, you should wear less clothes. So I took off my shell layer, and with my wool undergarment, I went into the sleeping bag, and that worked. The warm sleeping bag heated up the air around me, making it easier to breathe, and it didn't take long for me to fall asleep in the cozy, fantastic tent that I have. The next morning, after a few good hours of sleep, it was time to catch the sunrise and the morning light. I opened up the tent, and unfortunately, much like the sunset, it was undramatic. There were no mystic conditions, there were no clouds in the sky to catch the beautiful red, pink sunrise, and the wind was picking up, creating ripples in the water. I was really tempted to go back to sleep that time, but I just couldn't do it. I had come this far, I had to go up and take at least one photograph of the sunrise. So I got up to a higher vantage point where I could photograph the views and the morning sun kissing the treetops in this vast forest. I went down back to my tent, taking some photos of it as well, and then crept right back inside my sleeping bag and slept for additional 2 hours before getting up, pack up my stuff, eat some breakfast, and go back home. If you have seen my previous videos, you know that I accidentally deleted the footage of this specific adventure, so I decided to present it to you guys in this way. And if you like this video, do give it a like. It helps because other people will get to see this video as well. And if you want to see more of this type of content and a lot of other things, do subscribe. And as usual, a comment, a suggestion, a thought is highly appreciated in the comment section. And I'll see you next video. All right, bye now.